Third graders, as always, please make sure you have your math materials ready before we get started. So that would include, remember, your whiteboard and whiteboard marker and some sort of eraser. You will also need your math journal and a pencil. So I won't continue to write this every time, but it's just a reminder of the things that are important. So today we're starting with lesson 1-4, number lines and rounding. On your whiteboard, I am going to read 3 numbers. So number 1, 2, and 3 on your whiteboard. And I am going to read the number twice. And then I would like you to write it down. So number 1, 356. 356. Number 2, 472. 472. Number 3, 405. 405. Do you have 3 numbers written down? Number 1 was 356. Number 2, 472. And number 3, 405. Let's try one more set of those. Go ahead and erase your whiteboard and number 1, 2, and 3 again. I'll read each number twice. Number 1, 1,452. Write on your whiteboard, 1,452. Number 2, 2,698. 2,698. And number 3, 2,097. 2,097. Do you have 3 numbers written down? Number 1 was 1,452. Number 2 was 2,698. And number 3 was 2,097. Nothing in the hundreds place. Go ahead and erase your whiteboard. We are going to add together some numbers. So would you number 1 and number 2? The unit that they are talking about here is pencils. And most numbers have a label, whether they're talking about apples or children's books or how many people were at the concert or how many inches you grew over the summer. Numbers refer to usually something in terms of a label. So go ahead, number 1, add together 28 and 37. And number 2, 49 and 18. Pause your video and go ahead and add those. Number 1, 28 plus 37. I'm going to start by adding the ones column. 8 plus 7 is 15. Put down the 5 in the ones and carry the 1 over to the tens column. 1 plus 2 is 3, and 3 plus 3 is 6. The sum for number 1 is 65. Number 2, 49 and 18. Some people can do math really well in their head. That is a strength of theirs. I always like to write it down. I'm going to start with the ones column. 9 plus 8 is 17. Put down your 7. Carry your 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. 67. Now what I would like for you to do is to go ahead and make a number line. So you're going to write a line with 2 arrows on the end. We're going to round 54 to the nearest 10. 54 to the nearest 10. Which 2 multiples of 10 are closest to 54? We're going to write those down there. It would be 50. Write that on the left-hand side. And on the far right, 60. what would be halfway between 50 and 60? This is why we did skip count earlier this year. Halfway would be 55 if we skip counted. So where would 54 go? Would you please, on your number line, show me where 54 would be? I would probably say right about here. So is 54 closer to 50 or is it closer to 60? It is closer to 50. All right, let's draw another number line. Go ahead and draw a long line on your whiteboard with an arrow on each end. We're going to round 168 to the nearest 10. So what two multiples of 10 are closest to 168? 160, so put that on the far left-hand side. And then 10 more than that would be 170. So what would be halfway in between? What's halfway between 60 and 70? 65, 165. So now go ahead and write 165 in the middle. We're going to figure out, where does 168 belong on this number line? It's more than 165. Here it'd be about 166, 167. I would say maybe about here. So go ahead and make a line and write in the number 168. Now, is 168 closer to 160 or closer to 170? It is closer to 170. So rounded to the nearest 10 is 170. Let's go ahead and wipe off our whiteboard again. Let's draw another number line on your whiteboard. And we're rounding 325 to the nearest 100 this time. So what is the number that is closest to 325 that has a 3 in the hundreds place? 300, and what's 100 more than that? 400. So what's halfway between 300 and 400? Go ahead and write 350. So where would 325 go? Does it come before or after 350? Comes before. It's actually right about here. Go ahead and make a mark and write in 325. Now, is 325 closer to 300 or is it closer to 400? Closer to 300, isn't it? All right, let's do one more before we move into our math journal. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 72. If we round that to the nearest 10, which two multiples of 10 are closest to 72? The one smaller than it is 70, and 10 more than that is 80. So what's halfway on your whiteboard? You are making this number line. What's halfway between 70 and 80? 75. So would you please write where 72 would be on your number line? Maybe right about here. So is that closer to 70 or closer to 80? Closer to 70. Now, without doing a number line, I have a question. So let's not worry about the number line for a minute. Let's see if we can do this without the number line. Round to the nearest 10, 321. Well, I could write this on my whiteboard, so go ahead and write 320 on your whiteboard. What's 10 more than 320? 330. So which one would 321 be closer to? 320 or 330? It would be 320. You could do a number line if you wanted to. Let's see if we can do this one without a number line. 289. We are rounding to the nearest 100. So the 100 that is smaller would be 200. And what's 100 more than 200? 300. So where would 289 go? Is it closer to 200? Or is it closer to 300? It's closer to 300. If we were rounding 1,243 to the nearest 10, so we have to know this is ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. I could write 1,240. What would be 10 more than that? 1,250. So which one is that closer to? Is it closer to 1,240 or 1,250? It would be closer to 1,240. Let's go ahead and skip ahead to our math journal. So please turn to math journal page 6. Pause the video if you're not quite ready, and then restart it when you are ready. At the top it says rounding numbers. There's an example shown here of a number line. It says, what is 83 rounded to the nearest 10? So they took the multiples of 10, one that was smaller and one that was larger. Then they did what was halfway in between and then found out that 83 was actually closer to 80. So we're going to do some with number lines and some at the bottom of this page without number lines. So number 1, round each number, show your work on an open number line. Number 1, what is 47 rounded to the nearest 10? So the multiple that is the smallest would be 40. And what's 10 more than 40? 50. What is halfway between 40 and 50? 45. So then we have to figure out, where does 47 go on this number line? Probably right about here. So is that closer to 50 or closer to 40? It's closer to 50. Make sure you're filling out page 6 as we go along. You'll be taking a picture of this and uploading it for your assignment today. Number 2, what is 72 rounded to the nearest 10? So we're going to take the multiples of 70. And what's 10 more than 70? 80. What is halfway between 70 and 80 would be 75. So then we have to figure out, where does 72 go in this open number line? Right about here. So then we have to ask ourselves, is that closer to 70 or is it closer to 80? And it is closer to 70. Number 3, what is 234 rounded to the nearest 100? So 2 is in the hundreds place, so the smaller end of the number line would be 200. 1 more than 200 would be 300. And what would be halfway between 200 and 300? 250. So where would 234 belong in this number line? I would say probably about here. So is that closer to 200 or closer to 300? It's closer to 200. And the last 2 that we're going to do is try this. Round each number. You may sketch number lines to help. Here is a little clue. I'm going to underline the number that is in the tens place because this first one is rounding these 3 numbers to the nearest 10. 40 would be the smaller, and 50. Is 43 closer to 40, or would it be closer to 50? It would be closer to 40. How about 97? The smaller of the 2 would be 90, and what's 10 more than 90? 100. So is 97 closer to 90 or closer to 100? It's closer to 100. And 453, is that closer to 450? And 10 more than 50 would be 60. Is 453 closer to 450 or 460? It would be closer to 450. And the last set, in the hundreds, if there's nothing there, it'd be a 0 and 2. So I underline, you can do the same. We're going to round each of those 3 numbers to the hundreds place. So 348, is that closer to 300 or closer to 400? That one's almost halfway, but not quite. It's closer to 300. Is 89, would that be closer to 0 or closer to 100? It would be closer to 100. And the very last one, 297, is that closer to 200 or 300? It would be closer to 300. Take a picture of this journal page and upload it to Schoology.